When she heard the fall, a smile of satisfaction crept over Queen Silvertree's face. "Now I can say that I am the most beautiful woman in the world," she whispered, and she went back to the lackey who stood waiting at the end of the passage and told him that she had said all that she had to say to her daughter, and that now she must return home. So the man attended her to the boat with all due ceremony, and she set sail for her own country. And no one in the castle knew that any harm had befallen their dear mistress until the prince came home from his hunting with the key of the Malian chamber, which he had taken from his sheepdog's neck in his hand. He laughed when he heard the story of Queen Silvertree's visit and told the servants that they had done well. Then he ran upstairs to open the door and release his wife. But what was his horror and dismay when he did so, to find her lying dead at his feet on the floor. He was nearly beside himself with rage and grief, and because he knew that a deadly poison, such as Queen Silvertree had used, would preserve the princess's body so that it had no need of burial, he had it laid on a silken couch and left in the Malian chamber so that he could go and look at it whenever he pleased. He was so terribly lonely, however, that in a little time he married again, and his second wife was just as sweet and as good as the first one had been. This new wife was very happy. There was only one little thing that caused her any trouble at all, and she was too sensible to let it make her miserable. That one thing was that there was one room in the castle, a room which stood at the end of the passage by itself, which she could never enter, as her husband always carried the key, and as, when she asked him the reason of this, he always made an excuse of some kind. She made up her mind that she would not seem as if she did not trust him, so she asked no more questions about the matter. But one day, the prince chanced to leave the door unlocked, and as he had never told her not to do so, she went in, and there she saw Princess Goldtree lying on the silken couch, looking as if she were asleep. "Is she dead, or is she only sleeping?" she said to herself. She went up to the couch and looked closely at the princess, and there, sticking in her little finger, she discovered a curiously shaped needle. "There hath been evil work here," she thought to herself. "If that needle be not poisoned, then I know naught of medicine." And being skilled in leechcraft, she drew it carefully out. In a moment, Princess Goldtree opened her eye and sat up, and presently she had recovered sufficiently to tell the other princess the whole story. Now, if her stepmother had been jealous, the other princess was not jealous at all. For when she heard all that had happened, she clapped her little hands, crying, "Oh, how glad the prince will be! For although he hath married again, I know that he loves thee best." That night the prince came home from hunting, looking very tired and sad, for what his second wife had said was quite true. Although he loved her very much, he was always mourning in his heart for his first dear love, Princess Goldtree. "How sad thou art," exclaimed his wife, going out to meet him. "Is there nothing that I can do to bring a smile to thy face?" "Nothing," answered the prince wearily, laying down his bow, for he was too heartsore even to pretend to be happy, "except to give thee back Goldtree," said his wife mischievously, "and that I can do. Thou wilt find her alive and well in the Malin chamber." Without a word, the prince ran upstairs, and sure enough, there was his dear Goldtree, sitting on the couch, ready to welcome him. He was so overjoyed to see her that he threw his arms round her neck and kissed her over and over again, quite forgetting his poor second wife, who had followed him upstairs and who now stood watching the meeting that she had brought about. She did not seem to be sorry for herself, however. "I always knew that thy heart yearned after Princess Goldtree," she said, "and 'tis but right that it should be so, for she was thy first love. And since she hath come to life again, I will go back to mine own people." "No, indeed thou wilt not," answered the prince, "for it is thou who hast brought me this joy. Thou wilt stay with us, and we shall all three live happily together, and Goldtree and thee will become great friends." And so it came to pass, for Princess Goldtree and the other princess soon became like sisters and loved each other as if they had been brought up together all their lives. In this manner, another year passed away, and one evening in the old country, Queen Silvertree went, as she had done before, to look at her face in the water of the little well in the glen. And as had happened twice before, a trout was there. "Trouty, trouty," she whispered, "am I not the most beautiful woman in the world?" "By my troth, thou art not," answered the trout, as he had answered on the two previous occasions. "And who dost thou say is the most beautiful woman now?" asked the queen, her voice trembling with rage and vexation. "I have given her name to thee these 2 years back," answered the trout. "The Princess Goldtree, of course." "But she is dead," laughed the queen. "I'm sure of it this time, for it is just a year since I stabbed her little finger with a poisoned needle, and I heard her fall down dead on the floor." "I would not be so sure of that," answered the trout, and without saying another word, he dived straight down to the bottom of the well. After hearing his mysterious words, the queen could not rest, and at last she asked her husband to have the longship prepared once more, so that she could go and see her stepdaughter. The king gave the order gladly, and it all happened as it had happened before. She steered the ship over the sea with her own hands, and when it was approaching the land, it was seen and recognized by Princess Goldtree. The prince was out hunting, and the princess ran in great terror to her friend, the other princess, who was upstairs in her chamber. "Oh, what shall I do? What shall I do?" she cried, "for I see my father's long ship coming, and I know that my cruel stepmother is on board, and she will try to kill me, as she tried to kill me before. Oh, come, let us escape to the hills." "Not at all," replied the other princess, throwing her arms round the trembling Goldtree. "I am not afraid of thy lady stepmother. Come with me, and we will go down to the seashore to greet her." So they both went down to the edge of the water, and when Queen Silvertree saw her stepdaughter coming, she pretended to be very glad, and sprang out of the boat and ran to meet her, and held out a silver goblet full of wine for her to drink. "'Tis rare wine from the East," she said, "and therefore very precious. I brought a flagon with me, so that we might pledge each other in a loving cup." Princess Goldtree, who was ever gentle and courteous, would have stretched out her hand for the cup, had not the other princess stepped between her and her stepmother. "Nay, madam," she said gravely, looking the queen straight in the face, "it is the custom in this land for the one who offers a loving cup to drink from it first herself." "I will follow the custom gladly," answered the queen, and she raised the goblet to her mouth. But the other princess, who was watching her closely, noticed that she did not allow the wine that it contained to touch her lips. So she stepped forward, and as if by accident, struck the bottom of the goblet with her shoulder. Part of its contents flew into the queen's face, and part, before she could shut her mouth, went down her throat. So because of her wickedness, she was, as the good book says, caught in her own net, for she had made the wine so poisonous that almost before she had swallowed it, she fell dead at the two princesses' feet. No one was sorry for her, for she really deserved her fate. They buried her hastily in a lonely piece of ground. Very soon, everybody had forgotten all about her. As for Princess Goldtree, she lived happily and peacefully with her husband and her friend for the remainder of her life.